It's strange how a marriage can end in a sentence. Not a fight, not a revelation, not even an argument. Just 7 words dropped into the air like they'd been rehearsed. I'm done with you. I want out. It was a Tuesday evening. No special occasion. I'd just come back from a meeting, tie still tight, laptop under my arm. She was leaning against the kitchen counter, wine glass in hand, wearing the silk robe I'd bought her for our anniversary. It should have been an intimate scene, the kind where you set down your bag and pull someone close. Instead, it was the start of the end. I remember setting my laptop on the counter and asking, as calmly as I could, "What does that mean exactly?" "It means," she said, swirling her wine, "I'm not happy. I haven't been for a long time. You're boring now. Predictable. We don't have fun anymore." There was no tremor in her voice, no sign of hesitation. She wasn't asking for counseling or a break. She was issuing a verdict. I didn't beg. Maybe that surprised her. I just nodded, pulled out a chair, and sat. I let her fill the silence with little jabs about how she needed someone who could match her energy, how she didn't want to be tied down to the same old routine. I listened without arguing, because the truth is, I'd been feeling the cracks too. Not the same cracks she imagined, though. Mine weren't about boredom. Mine were about trust. For the last 6 months, I'd been noticing the small changes. The new perfume, she said, was a gift from a friend. The phone that never left her hand, face down when it sat on the table. The girls' trips that grew longer and more frequent. I never accused her. I just paid attention. That night, after she declared herself done, she added something that stuck with me. "I don't need anything from you. Just the house." She said it so matter-of-factly, like it was already hers. And maybe in her mind it was. She'd moved in right after we got married, when the mortgage was still a stack of papers on my desk, and she didn't have a cent in it. Back then, she'd called it our home. Now, she was calling it her house. I didn't argue about that either. I told her I'd think about it. She smirked, as if she'd already won. For the next 2 weeks, we lived like polite strangers. She stayed out later, came home smelling of hotel soap. I made no effort to stop her. Meanwhile, I was meeting quietly with my lawyer, rearranging the financial chessboard I'd been building for years. The house, as she knew it, wasn't quite as simple as a name on a deed. She didn't know about the holding company that technically owned the property. She didn't know the bank still had a sizable lien against it, a lien I could make very uncomfortable for her. She didn't know that giving her exactly what she wanted didn't mean giving it for free. 2 Fridays later, I packed my things while she was out having drinks with friends. I left my key on the counter, a short note beside it. "You said you were done. I'm just making sure. The house is yours. Congratulations." When she walked in and saw the empty closet, she laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound that echoed off the kitchen tiles. She texted me a string of celebratory emojis and one line. "Thanks for making this easy." I didn't reply, because the real conversation wasn't going to be between her and me. It was going to be between her and the bank, and that day was still ahead of her. And when it came, she wouldn't be laughing. When I left, I didn't just disappear. I made sure every step was documented, timed, and legal. That's something she never understood about me. She saw my calm as passivity, my silence as weakness. What she never grasped was that I play the long game, and I don't move until the board is mine. For the first month after I walked out, she sent me the occasional smug text, photos of her lounging by the pool, captioned "Home Sweet Home," or "Finally Living." I didn't respond. She thought my silence meant I was sulking somewhere in a sad bachelor apartment. In reality, I was meeting with the bank. See, when we refinanced the house 2 years ago, part of a bigger investment shuffle, I'd shifted the mortgage under my holding company. On paper, I was just a guarantor, not the owner. The house was an asset of the company, and as part of the agreement, certain performance clauses kicked in if I vacated the premises and ceased paying the note. Translation: if I left, the company could liquidate. Liquidation meant selling the house to cover obligations. And since she had never contributed a dime to the purchase or upkeep, she had no legal claim to prevent it. I didn't need to twist any knives. I just needed to let the process run its course. Meanwhile, I kept my distance. I rented a small place across town, focused on my work, and waited. But word gets around in a community like ours. Friends. Well, people who used to be mutual friends told me she'd started hosting little gatherings at her house. Champagne on the patio, music spilling out of the sliding doors. I imagined her holding court, telling her version of the story, that she'd finally gotten rid of the dull, overcautious husband and kept the crown jewel of the marriage. I almost admired her confidence. Almost. The first sign of trouble came in a voicemail she didn't mean for me to hear. She'd called the bank, furious, demanding to know why she'd received a notice about loan reassessment. The tone was pure disbelief, as if the institution existed solely to cater to her comfort. I didn't return the call. 3 weeks later, she tried again, this time with a text. "We need to talk. You've made some kind of mistake with the house paperwork." I replied with a single line. "No mistake. Read the fine print." After that, the silence stretched. Then came the rumors. Someone told me they'd driven by and seen a "for sale" sign in the yard. Another said she'd been crying at a cafe downtown, telling anyone who'd listened that I'd tricked her. I didn't correct them. I didn't need to. The truth was simpler. She had asked to be done with me, and I had obliged. I had even given her the very thing she wanted most. I just didn't promise she'd get to keep it. The day the bank showed up, I wasn't there, but I heard about it within the hour. A neighbor, one of the few who'd stayed cordial with me, called while it was happening. "She's on the lawn," he said, his voice low, as if he was narrating a nature documentary. 2 bank reps, a guy with a clipboard, and some movers. She's screaming about calling her lawyer. I pictured it instantly, the silk robe swapped for yoga pants, hair pulled back, no audience except the people taking her keys. That was the thing about her. She could play the role of untouchable queen at parties, but real conflict left her flailing. They gave her the paperwork. They explained, slowly, that the house was an asset under corporate control, and with the guarantor, me, no longer occupying it. The liquidation clause had been triggered. Legal. Clean. No loopholes to crawl through. She called me, of course. 5 times. I let it ring each time. Finally, she sent a message. "You said it was mine." I stared at those words longer than I should have. She wasn't wrong. I had said that. And in a way, it had been hers. Until it wasn't. I typed my reply carefully. It was, "Until you stop paying for it." There was no answer. Just silence, the kind that feels like an empty room. Later that week, I drove by, not to gloat, not really, just to see the place one last time. The yard was overgrown, the curtains gone, a lockbox hanging from the doorknob. Whatever laughter she'd had when I left was long spent. I thought about pulling over, about walking up the driveway and telling her something, anything, to make sense of it all. But what was there to say? She'd been clear about what she wanted. I'd been clear in giving it. Sometimes, getting exactly what you ask for is the cruelest thing in the world. So I kept driving. And somewhere between that street and the highway, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Not at her. Not at the past. The weight was gone. She had her freedom. I had my peace. And the house. Well, the house had new owners.